My own family ignored my wedding, saying it wasn't worth their time, but my billionaire in-laws turned it into the event of the century, leaving everyone wishing they had come. I shine brighter than ever. Subscribe to the channel and like the video. To see more stories like this, I stood in the bridal suite of the Grand Belmont Hotel, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as guests arrived in limousines and luxury cars. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the diamond necklace my mother-in-law, Catherine Richardson, had placed around my neck just an hour earlier. It was a family heirloom worth more than my childhood home. "You look absolutely radiant, darling," Catherine said, appearing behind me in the reflection. Her elegant silver dress complemented her naturally gray hair, which she wore with the confidence of someone who had never felt the need to hide her age. "Are you ready?" I nodded, but my throat was tight. Not from nervousness about marrying Daniel, the man who had shown me what real love looked like, but from the gaping absence that should have been filled by my own family. My mother, my father, my sister Claire, and my brother Marcus. None of them were here. The wedding was scheduled for 6 in the evening at one of the most prestigious venues in the city. Outside, 300 guests mingled on the manicured lawns, sipping champagne that cost more per bottle than my monthly rent used to be. Inside, I was trying not to think about the 4 empty seats in the front row where my family should have been sitting. "They said it wasn't important," I whispered, more to myself than to Catherine. She squeezed my shoulder gently. "Then they're fools, Elena. And today, you'll show them exactly what they missed." The memory of that phone call 3 months ago still burned in my mind. I had been so excited to tell my mother about the wedding plans, about Daniel's proposal on the beach in the Maldives, about the ring that sparkled on my finger like captured starlight. "Mom, I'm getting married," I had practically shouted into the phone. There was a pause. Then, "That's nice, Elena. When is it?" "June 15th. I know it's only 3 months away, but Daniel's family wants to help organize everything, and June 15th? My mother's voice had gone cold. "That's the weekend of Claire's art exhibition opening. You know how important this is for her career." My excitement deflated like a punctured balloon. "Mom, it's my wedding." "Elena, be reasonable. Your sister has been working toward this for years. You can get married any weekend. Can't you postpone it? Or maybe do something small and simple? That would be more your style anyway. More my style." Translation: something cheap and forgettable, because that's what they expected from me. "I don't want to postpone it, Mom. This is important to me too." She sighed, that familiar sound of disappointment I'd heard my entire life. "Well, I'm sorry, but we can't miss Claire's opening. Your father has already invited all his colleagues. You understand, don't you?" "No," I said quietly. "I really don't." "Don't be dramatic, Elena. It's just one day. You'll have many anniversaries to celebrate, but this is Claire's moment to shine." Claire's moment. It was always Claire's moment, or Marcus's achievement, or my parents' social obligation. Never mine. I had tried calling my father next, hoping he might see reason. "Your mother told me about the wedding," he said before I could even speak. "Look, Elena, we've already committed to being at your sister's event. We can't just abandon her. You know how sensitive she is. I'm your daughter too," I reminded him, hating how small my voice sounded. "Of course you are, and we'll celebrate with you another time. Maybe we can take you and Daniel out to dinner when we're back in town. How does that sound? Like you're offering me scraps from the table while Claire gets the feast?" I thought. Then I had made the mistake of calling my brother Marcus, thinking maybe he at least would support me. "Dude, I already told Claire I'd be there for her big night," he said, using that casual tone that dismissed everything I said. "Plus, let's be real. You're marrying into money. You'll have plenty of other fancy events. Claire only gets one shot at this exhibition. It's my wedding, Marcus, not just another fancy event." "Yeah, but come on. You know how Mom and Dad are about Claire's art career. They've invested so much money in it. We kind of have to show up, you know? Family loyalty and all that." Family loyalty. The irony was almost funny. The final blow came from Claire herself, who sent me a text message. "Sorry, sis, but you get why I can't miss my own opening, right? Besides, you're marrying a billionaire. You don't need us there. You'll be too busy with your new fancy family anyway. Don't be selfish." Don't be selfish. I was being selfish for wanting my family at my wedding. I had cried for 2 days straight after those conversations. Daniel found me in our apartment, surrounded by crumpled tissues, staring at the guest list with 4 names I couldn't bring myself to cross off. "They're not coming," I told him, my voice hollow. "None of them." He sat beside me, pulling me into his arms. "Then they're idiots who don't deserve you. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am being selfish. Claire's exhibition is a big deal for her and—" "Stop." Daniel pulled back to look at me directly. "Elena, listen to me. You are not selfish for wanting your family at your wedding. That's the bare minimum of what they should give you. And if they can't see how important this is, then that's their failure, not yours." "But what will people think? An entire row of empty seats where my family should be." Daniel had smiled then, that confident smile that had first made me fall in love with him. "Leave that to me, and to my mother. We'll make sure this wedding is so spectacular that those empty seats won't matter. We'll fill them with people who actually love you." And that's exactly what they had done. Catherine and Daniel's father, Robert, had spared no expense. They hired the best wedding planner in the city, who transformed the Grand Belmont's ballroom into something from a fairy tale. Thousands of white roses and peonies created cascading arrangements that looked like clouds. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, and the cake was a 7-tier masterpiece that belonged in a museum. But more than the luxury and the decorations, Catherine had done done something that made me cry all over again. She had invited people from my life that my own family had never bothered to acknowledge. My best friend from college, Naomi, who flew in from Seattle. My former mentor, Professor Morrison, who had believed in me when I was struggling through graduate school. Even Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who used to bring me soup when I was sick and alone in my first apartment. These are the people who matter, Catherine had told me. These are your real family. Now, standing in the bridal suite, I could hear the string quartet beginning to play. It was almost time. My maid of honor, Naomi, rushed in, her emerald dress swishing around her legs. Elena, oh my God, you look like a princess. Are you ready? Everyone's seated, and Daniel looks like he might pass out from excitement. I took a deep breath, looking at my reflection one more time. The dress was custom made, a stunning creation of silk and lace that fit me like it had been designed by angels. My dark hair was swept up in an elegant style, with small diamond pins that caught the light. I looked like someone from a magazine. I looked nothing like the girl my family had always seen as just Elena. I'm ready, I said, and I meant it. Catherine handed me my bouquet, white roses mixed with delicate baby's breath. Remember, darling, you walked down that aisle for yourself and for Daniel, not for anyone who chose not to be here. As we made our way to the entrance of the ballroom, I could hear the guests settling into their seats. The doors opened, and I saw it all laid out before me. The flower-lined aisle, the hundreds of faces turning to look at me with genuine happiness, and at the end of it all, Daniel, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. In the front row on my side, where my parents should have been sitting, Catherine had placed a beautiful arrangement with a small card that read, "For the family who loved Elena first, her friends, Naomi, Professor Morrison, Mrs. Chen, and several others I had grown to love over the years," filled those seats, smiling and crying happy tears. The music swelled, and I began to walk. With each step, I felt stronger. I wasn't the overlooked daughter anymore. I wasn't the sister who always came second. I was Elena Richardson, about to marry the love of my life, surrounded by people who chose to be here. But what I didn't know then, as I walked down that aisle, feeling like I had finally found where I belonged, was that my family was about to discover exactly what they had missed. And by the time they realized it, it would be far too late for them to ever be part of my world again. The humiliation they were about to face would be entirely of their own making. The ceremony was perfect. Daniel's vows made me cry, and when he slipped the platinum band onto my finger, I felt like I was finally becoming the person I was always meant to be. The applause was thunderous, and as we walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, I caught Catherine's eye. She was crying, but smiling, and she mouthed, "Welcome to the family." The reception was beyond anything I could have imagined. The ballroom had been transformed into a winter wonderland, despite it being June. Ice sculptures sparkled under the chandeliers, and each table was named after a place Daniel and I had traveled together. The head table was elevated slightly, giving us a perfect view of all the guests who had come to celebrate with us. What I didn't know was that across town at Claire's art exhibition, things were not going as planned. I learned later, much later, that the exhibition had been a disaster from the start. Only about 40 people showed up, most of them family friends who felt obligated. The gallery was small and poorly lit, and Claire's artwork, which my parents had insisted was revolutionary, received lukewarm responses at best. My mother had spent the entire evening checking her phone, seeing social media posts from our wedding, because even though my family hadn't attended, plenty of other people had, and they were posting about it. Luxury Magazine had sent a photographer. The wedding was being covered in real time on several society pages, but I knew none of this as I sat at the head table, Daniel's hand warm in mine, listening to the toasts. Robert, Daniel's father, stood first. He was a distinguished man in his early 60s, with silver hair and the kind of presence that commanded attention without demanding it. When Daniel first told us about Elena, he began, his voice carrying across the room, he said he'd met someone who saw him for who he really was, not for what he had. In our world, that's rare. What's even rarer is finding someone who makes you want to be better than you are. He turned to look at me directly. Elena, you've brought joy into this family that we didn't even know we were missing. You've shown us what real kindness looks like, what genuine warmth feels like, and I want you to know that from this day forward, you are not just our daughter-in-law. You are our daughter. Welcome home. The room erupted in applause, and I felt tears streaming down my face. This man, who had known me for less than a year, had just claimed me as his daughter with more conviction than my own father had ever shown. Catherine spoke next, and her words were equally moving, but it was Naomi's toast that truly captured the moment. "I've known Elena since we were 18 years old," Naomi said, her voice strong and clear. "I've watched her give everything to people who gave her nothing in return. I've seen her make herself smaller so others could feel bigger. But today, I'm watching her shine exactly as bright as she was always meant to. Daniel, you're the luckiest man alive. Elena, you're finally with a family that deserves you." The celebration continued late into the night. Dinner was a 5-course meal that had been crafted by a Michelin-starred chef. The first dance was magical, with Daniel holding me close as we swayed to a live orchestra. And when Catherine and Robert joined us on the dance floor, I finally understood what it felt like to be part of a real family. Around 10 o'clock, as guests were enjoying dessert and dancing, my phone buzzed in the small clutch I'd kept nearby. It was a text from an unknown number, but the message made my blood run cold. Saw the wedding posts on Instagram? Looks nice. Would have been there if Claire's thing wasn't the same day. Glad you had fun. Mom would have been there. As if it had been a scheduling conflict rather than a choice. As if they had any intention of coming, even if Claire's exhibition had been on a different weekend. I showed the text to Daniel, and his jaw tightened. Don't respond, he said quietly. Not tonight. Tonight is ours. But 20 minutes later, another text came through, this time from Claire. Your wedding is all over social media. Nice to see you finally got your moment. The exhibition went great. BTW sold 3 pieces. Mom and Dad are so proud. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. She was still making it a competition, still dismissing my wedding as just my moment, as if it were equivalent to her selling 3 paintings. Then Marcus chimed in, damn sis, that wedding looks insane. Didn't know Daniel's family was that rich. Should have mentioned that earlier, LOL. Maybe I would have tried harder to make it work. I stared at my phone, feeling Daniel's hand tighten around mine. The wedding was still happening around us. People were laughing, dancing, celebrating. But suddenly, I felt like I was standing in 2 worlds at once. Elena, Daniel said softly, look at me. I did. And his blue eyes were fierce with protective anger. They don't get to do this. Not tonight. Not ever again. You are done being their backup plan. Before I could respond, Catherine appeared at our side. Somehow she knew something was wrong. What happened? She asked, her voice sharp with concern. I showed her the messages, and I watched her face transform from warmth to ice-cold fury. May I? She asked, gesturing to my phone. I nodded, not sure what she intended to do. Catherine's fingers flew across the screen, typing out responses with the precision of someone who had dealt with difficult people her entire life. She showed me what she'd written before sending anything. To my mother, this is Catherine Richardson, Elena's mother-in-law. Your daughter's wedding was indeed beautiful, as she deserves. It's unfortunate you chose not to witness it in person. The social media posts you're seeing represent only a fraction of the celebration. Perhaps next time you'll reconsider your priorities. CR. To Claire. Claire, this is Elena's mother-in-law. Thank you for your kind words about the wedding. I'm pleased to hear your exhibition went well. 3 sales is certainly an achievement. For context, the charitable donation made in Elena's name tonight will fund an entire arts education program for underprivileged children for the next 5 years. Perhaps you both can celebrate your respective successes. CR. To Marcus. Marcus, this is Catherine Richardson. Yes, our family is comfortable, but that's hardly relevant to why we're celebrating Elena today. What matters is that she's surrounded by people who value her presence more than her connections. I hope you'll remember that. CR. Should I send these? Catherine asked me, her eyebrow raised. Part of me wanted to say no, to take the high road, to pretend the messages hadn't hurt. But a stronger part of me, the part that had been crushed under my family's indifference for 28 years, wanted them to know exactly what they'd lost. Send them, I said. Catherine hit send on all 3 messages, then handed me back my phone. Now let's get back to your wedding. They've taken enough from you already. They don't get another second of this night. But the damage was done. My family had managed to inject their poison into my perfect day, even from a distance. What I didn't know was that Catherine's messages had started a chain reaction. My mother, reading the response from Catherine Richardson, had immediately recognized the name. Richardson wasn't just wealthy. Robert Richardson owned one of the largest private equity firms in the country. Catherine Richardson sat on the boards of 3 major museums and was known in philanthropic circles as someone whose approval could make or break charitable initiatives. My mother had married my father because he was a successful corporate lawyer. My parents moved in circles where they rubbed elbows with local politicians and business owners, but the Richardsons, they were in a completely different stratosphere, and my mother had just been put in her place by one of the most influential women in the state. Claire's response to Catherine's message was immediate and defensive. I don't know who you think you are, but my exhibition was important. Elena understands that. She's always been supportive of my career. Catherine's reply was swift. I'm Elena's family now, and unlike some people, I show up when it matters. The entire exchange was happening while I was cutting the wedding cake with Daniel, smiling for photos, completely unaware that my new mother-in-law was waging war on my behalf. Marcus, apparently lacking his siblings' self-preservation instincts, sent back, wow, defensive much? It's not that serious, lady. Catherine's final response to him was devastatingly simple. You're absolutely right. It's not that serious to you. And that's exactly the problem. Then she blocked all 3 of their numbers from my phone. There, she said, returning my phone. Problem solved. They can't ruin another moment of your night. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of joy. We danced until midnight when Daniel surprised me by having fireworks launched over the hotel's lake. The display lasted 15 minutes, and I stood wrapped in his arms, watching the sky sky explode in colors, feeling like I had finally found where I belonged. As the last guests were leaving, Naomi pulled me aside. "Elena, I need to tell you something," she said, her face serious. "Your mom called me an hour ago." My stomach dropped. What did she want? She wanted to know if I could get her in touch with Catherine Richardson. She said something about clearing up a misunderstanding, and of course we would have been there if we'd known how important this was. I told her I couldn't help her. I felt a cold satisfaction settle over me. "Good, there's more," Naomi continued. "She asked me how wealthy Daniel's family actually is. She wanted specifics. I told her it was none of her business, and that if she'd cared to attend her own daughter's wedding, she might have found out for herself." "Thank you," I whispered. Naomi hugged me tightly. "You deserve so much better than them, and now you have it. Don't ever forget that." As Daniel and I finally left the reception for our suite, I felt exhausted but triumphant. My wedding had been everything I'd dreamed of and more. My family's absence had been noted, pitied, and ultimately dismissed as their loss rather than my shame. But I had no idea that the real consequences of their choices were just beginning. The honeymoon was 3 weeks in Italy. Daniel had rented a villa in Tuscany, and we spent our days exploring medieval towns, eating incredible food, and simply being together without the weight of wedding planning or family drama hanging over us. I had turned off my phone for the entire trip. Daniel insisted on it. "This time is ours," he said on our first morning as we sat on the terrace overlooking rolling vineyards. "No one gets to intrude on it. Not work, not friends, and definitely not your family." It was blissful. For 3 whole weeks, I existed in a bubble where I was simply Elena Richardson, newly married, completely in love, and free from the burden of trying to earn affection from people who would never give it freely. But reality was waiting for me when we returned home. I turned on my phone at the airport, and it immediately began buzzing with notifications. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages, dozens of voicemails. Most of them were from my mother. "Elena, please call me back. We need to talk. Elena, this is important. Catherine Richardson has been ignoring my messages, and I really need to speak with her. Elena, I'm starting to get worried. Are you okay? Please just let us know you're alive. Your father and I have been trying to reach you for 2 weeks. This silent treatment is childish." The progression from concerned to annoyed was almost funny. Claire had left several messages too, each one more entitled than the last. "Elena, Mom said you're not answering anyone. Look, I get that you're upset, but you're being dramatic. We can't change the past, so can we just move forward? Seriously, how long are you going to keep this up? Mom's really stressed about this whole thing with your new mother-in-law. Can you please just call Catherine and smooth things over? Okay, I'm starting to think you're doing this on purpose just to punish us." Very mature, Elena. Marcus's messages were briefer but equally self-centered. "Yo, sis, Mom's freaking out. Can you chill? Dude, seriously, just call them back. Whatever. Your loss if you want to be dramatic about this." I showed the messages to Daniel as we waited for our luggage. "They haven't changed at all," he observed, his voice flat. "Not one of them has actually apologized for missing the wedding. They're just annoyed that there are consequences for their actions." He was right. Not a single message contained anything resembling genuine remorse, just irritation that I wasn't immediately available to fix the mess they'd created. "What do you want to do?" Daniel asked. I thought about it as we collected our bags and headed home. What did I want to do? For my entire life, I had been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over conflicts, who apologized even when I wasn't wrong, who bent over backwards to maintain family harmony. But standing in that airport, jet-lagged and tired, I realized something fundamental had shifted inside me. I didn't want to fix this. I didn't want to make it easier for them. And most importantly, I didn't owe them anything. I want to let them sit with it, I said finally. I want them to understand that they can't just snap their fingers and have me come running back. Daniel squeezed my hand. "Good. You deserve better than being their emotional support animal." We had been home for 2 days when my mother showed up at our apartment unannounced. I was unpacking the last of our suitcases when the doorman called up. "Mrs. Richardson, there's a Helen Foster here to see you. She says she's your mother." Helen Foster. She hadn't even bothered to learn my married name yet. "Tell her I'm not available," I said. There was a pause. "She's quite insistent, ma'am. She says it's urgent." "I don't care. Tell her to make an appointment if she wants to see me." I hung up, my heart pounding. I had never refused my mother anything before. It felt terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. She called again, and again, and again. Finally, I answered. "What do you want, Mom?" "Elena, thank God. I'm downstairs in your building and they won't let me up. Can you tell them it's okay?" "No." Silence. "What do you mean?" "No. I mean no. I don't want you to come up. If you want to talk to me, you can make an appointment like everyone else." "Appointment? Elena, I'm your mother. I don't need an appointment to see my own daughter." The audacity of it took my breath away. "You didn't need an invitation to my wedding either, but you still didn't show up." "Elena, please. We need to talk about this misunderstanding with Catherine Richardson. She won't return any of my messages, and I think there's been some kind of confusion." "There's no confusion, Mom. You chose Claire's art exhibition over my wedding. wedding. Catherine responded accordingly. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a consequence. It's not that simple, my mother insisted. You don't understand the pressure we were under. Claire's career is at a crucial point and we had to support her. And I'm your daughter at a crucial point in my life. But that didn't matter to you. Of course it mattered. But you have Daniel now and his family, and obviously you're doing fine. Claire doesn't have anyone else to support her. There it was. The truth she'd probably believed all along. I had Daniel and his family, so I didn't need my own parents anymore. As if love and support were finite resources that could only be given to one child at a time. I'm hanging up now, I said. Elena, wait. I ended the call and immediately blocked her number. The next attempt came through Claire, who sent me a long email the following day. Elena, I don't understand why you're being so vindictive about this. Mom and Dad are really upset, and honestly, I'm disappointed in you. We're family. Family is supposed to forgive each other and move on. You're acting like a spoiled brat who didn't get her way, and it's really unattractive. I get that you're upset we missed your wedding, but you have to understand that my exhibition was a huge opportunity for me. You've always been supportive of my art before. Why are you choosing now to be selfish about it? And this whole thing with your new mother-in-law attacking us? That's completely out of line. You need to get her under control and have her apologize to Mom. It's embarrassing for our family to have some stranger sending us nasty messages. I think you're letting your new wealthy lifestyle go to your head. Don't forget where you came from, Elena. We're still your family, and we deserve your respect. Call Mom back and fix this. Claire. I read the email 3 times, feeling my anger grow with each pass. The complete lack of self-awareness was almost impressive. In Claire's mind, she was the victim here. I was the one being unreasonable. I forwarded the email to Catherine without comment. Her response came back within 5 minutes. Would you like me to handle this, or would you prefer to do it yourself? Either way, she doesn't get to speak to you like this. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to write back to Claire, to explain exactly how hurtful and dismissive she was being, but I realized that would be pointless. Claire had never seen me as an equal, and she never would. Instead, I wrote back to Catherine, I'd like to handle it myself, but I'd appreciate your advice on how to make it clear that this behavior isn't acceptable. 20 minutes later, Catherine called me. Come have lunch with me, she said. We need to talk about boundaries. We met at an elegant restaurant downtown, the kind of place where conversations were private, and the staff knew better than to interrupt unless absolutely necessary. The problem, Catherine explained over salads that cost more than my family's typical dinner out, is that you've spent your entire life training them to treat you this way. Every time they dismissed you and you accepted it, you taught them that your feelings don't matter. Every time they prioritized something else and you didn't protest, you confirmed that you're the low-priority child. I know, I admitted, but I didn't know how to change it. You change it by enforcing consequences, Catherine said firmly. Your mother shows up unannounced? You don't let her in? Your sister sends you a disrespectful email? You don't engage with it. Your brother acts like none of this matters? You show him that it does by removing him from your life. Isn't that too harsh? I asked. They're still my family. Catherine set down her fork and looked at me intently. Elena, let me tell you something I learned a long time ago. Being related to someone by blood doesn't give them the right to treat you poorly. Family is supposed to be your safe place, your source of support and love. If they're not providing that, then they're just people you happen to share DNA with. But what if they change? I asked. What if they realize they were wrong? Then they'll have to prove it through their actions, not their words, Catherine replied. And even then, you get to decide whether you want to let them back into your life. You don't owe them forgiveness just because they're family. You don't owe them anything. The conversation shifted something fundamental in my thinking. I had always assumed that family meant unconditional acceptance, no matter how they treated me. But Catherine was right. The condition should be basic respect and care. Without that, the relationship was just a formality. After lunch, I went home and wrote 2 emails. The first was to Claire. Claire, your email made it clear that you still don't understand why I'm upset. You're right that families should forgive each other and move on, but forgiveness requires acknowledgement of wrongdoing and genuine remorse. I've seen neither from you, Mom, Dad, or Marcus. You chose your art exhibition over my wedding. That was your choice to make, but choices have consequences. The consequence is that I'm no longer willing to prioritize maintaining a relationship with people who have consistently shown me that I'm not a priority to them. Catherine didn't attack you. She responded to your dismissive messages with honesty. If you found her responses embarrassing, perhaps you should reflect on why your own words sound so bad when repeated back to you by someone else. I'm not letting my wealthy lifestyle go to my head. I'm finally recognizing my own worth and refusing to accept less than I deserve. I suggest you do the same with your art. Don't contact me again unless you're ready to offer a genuine apology and make real changes in how you treat me. Elena Richardson. The second email was to my parents. Mom and Dad, I've given this situation a lot of thought over the past few weeks, and I've come to some difficult realizations. For my entire life, I have been the child you could count on to understand, to be flexible, to put everyone else's needs before my own. I accepted that role because I loved you and wanted your approval, but your absence from my wedding made me see that no matter what I do, that approval will never come. You chose Claire's art exhibition over my wedding because you believed I would forgive you and she wouldn't. You were right that I would eventually forgive you, But you were wrong to assume that forgiveness means accepting the same treatment going forward. I'm not interested in maintaining a relationship where I'm the backup child, the one whose important moments can be skipped because something more interesting is happening elsewhere. I deserve better than that, and I'm finally strong enough to demand it. If you want to be part of my life, you need to show me through your actions, not your words, that I matter to you. Until then, please respect my need for space. Elena. I sent both emails before I could second-guess myself. Daniel came home an hour later and found me sitting on the couch, staring at my laptop. Did you do it? He asked. I nodded. I did it. He sat beside me and pulled me close. How do you feel? Terrified, I admitted, and relieved, and sad, and angry, all at the same time. That's normal, he said. You're grieving the family you wished you had while finally accepting the family you actually have. Will it always hurt this much? I asked. No, he said firmly. It gets easier, and you have us now. Mom, Dad, me, we're your family too. The responses came faster than I expected. Claire replied within an hour. Wow, I can't believe you're being so dramatic about this. Don't come crying to me when you realize you've thrown away your real family for people who only care about you because of what you can do for them. My mother's response came that evening. Elena, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this cold and cruel behavior is not the daughter I raised. You're breaking your father's heart. I hope you're proud of yourself. My father didn't respond at all. Marcus sent a text before I could block him. You're dead to me, sis. Hope your rich friends are worth it. I showed all the responses to Daniel and Catherine the next day. Well, Catherine said dryly, they're certainly showing their true colors. Your mother is guilt-tripping you, your sister is projecting, and your brother is being melodramatic. Very on-brand for all of them. The good news, Daniel added, is that you now have written proof that they're not capable of the self-reflection required to fix this relationship. You gave them a chance to take responsibility, and they chose to attack you instead. That makes your next steps much clearer. What are my next steps? I asked. Catherine smiled. You live your life. You be happy. You build your career, your marriage, your future, and you let them watch from the outside, wondering what they lost. It sounded simple. It sounded perfect. But I had no idea just how literally we would make that happen. 3 months after my wedding, life had settled into a wonderful new rhythm. I had started working with Catherine on one of her charitable foundations, using my background in education to help develop programs for underprivileged children. Daniel's business was thriving, and we had just closed on a beautiful townhouse in one of the city's most prestigious neighborhoods. I hadn't heard from my family since their hostile responses to my emails. Part of me was relieved. Part of me ached with the loss of what I'd always hoped they could be. Then came the invitation that would change everything. Robert Richardson was being honored at the annual Philanthropic Excellence Gala, one of the most prestigious charity events in the state. The gala was legendary, the kind of event where governors, business moguls, and cultural icons mingled. Tickets cost $10,000 per person, and even then, you had to be invited. We'd like you and Daniel to sit at the head table with us, Catherine told me over coffee one morning. Your family, and besides, the foundation work you've been doing deserves recognition too. Me? I asked, shocked. Catherine, I've only been working with the foundation for 3 months, and in those 3 months, you've revolutionized our education outreach program. The literacy initiative you developed is going to help thousands of children. You deserve to be celebrated for that. The gala was 6 weeks away, and the planning for what I would wear, how I would present myself, became a joyful project with Catherine. She introduced me to her personal stylist, who helped me find a stunning midnight blue gown that made me feel like royalty. What I didn't know was that my mother had been trying desperately to get invited to the same gala. Helen Foster, my mother, had always fancied herself part of high society. My father's position as a corporate lawyer had given her access to certain social circles, but they were nothing compared to the level the Richardsons operated at. The gala was exactly the kind of event my mother had always dreamed of attending, where she could rub elbows with real power and influence. She had reached out to every connection she had, trying to secure tickets. She had even, I learned later, tried to leverage her relationship with me as Daniel's wife to get an invitation through the back door. Catherine found out about these attempts and told me over lunch one day. Your mother has been calling the foundation office, Catherine said, her voice carefully neutral. She's been telling people she's the grandmother of my grandchildren and should be included in family events. My face burned with embarrassment. I'm so sorry. I'll call her and tell her to stop. You'll do no such thing, Catherine said firmly. You've set your boundaries. She's choosing to ignore them. But I think it's time we made those boundaries very, very clear. The night of the gala arrived. I spent the afternoon getting ready with Catherine at her home, a sprawling estate that still made me catch my breath every time I visited. Professional makeup artists and hairstylists transformed me into someone I barely recognized. The midnight blue gown hugged my figure perfectly, and the diamonds Catherine loaned me sparkled at my throat and ears. You look like you belong here, Catherine said, admiring me in the mirror. Because you do. Daniel's reaction when he saw me made all the preparation worth it. His eyes widened, and he actually stopped walking for a moment. Elena, he breathed, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. We arrived at the gala in the Richardson family limousine. The venue was the city's most exclusive hotel, and the ballroom had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over tables draped in white silk, and enormous floral arrangements created a garden atmosphere. As we entered, photographers lined the red carpet. I had gotten used to having my photo taken at Richardson family events, but this was different. This was major media coverage. The flashes were blinding as we posed, Daniel's arm around my waist, both of us smiling. "Mr. and Mrs. Richardson," a reporter called out. "Elena, you look stunning. Can you tell us about your work with the Richardson Foundation?" I spoke briefly about the education initiatives, surprised by how confident I sounded. This was my life now. This was who I was becoming. Inside, we were escorted to the head table, positioned front and center. The seating chart had been carefully orchestrated. Robert and Catherine in the middle, Daniel and me to their right, and Robert's business partner and his wife to their left. Every person at our table was someone of significance. As I sat down, I noticed the room was filling with familiar faces from news and media. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities who devoted their time to charitable causes. This was the world my mother had always desperately wanted to be part of, and that's when I saw her. My mother was standing near the entrance with my father, both of them dressed in their best formal wear. They were talking to someone at the registration desk, and even from across the room, I could see the conversation wasn't going well. "Daniel," I whispered, touching his arm. "My parents are here." He followed my gaze, and his expression hardened. Catherine noticed our distraction and looked over as well. "How interesting," Catherine murmured. I made absolutely certain they weren't on the guest list. We watched as security was called over. My mother's face was getting red, her gestures becoming more animated. My father stood beside her, looking uncomfortable but not intervening. One of the event coordinators, a young woman named Miranda, who I'd worked with on foundation projects, hurried over to our table. "Mrs. Richardson," she said, addressing Catherine, "I'm so sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation at the entrance. A couple claiming to be Elena's parents are demanding entry. They say there's been a mistake with the guest list." Catherine's expression didn't change. "There's been no mistake. They weren't invited, and they're not welcome. Please have security escort them out." "They're insisting on speaking to Elena," Miranda continued, looking at me apologetically. Before I could respond, Catherine stood up. "I'll handle this. Elena shouldn't have to deal with their dramatics on a night like this." But I stood up too. "No, Catherine, I'll do it. It's time I made my position clear." Daniel stood with me, his hand protectively on my back. "We'll do it together." We walked across the ballroom, and I could feel eyes following us. People were starting to notice the commotion at the entrance. This was exactly the kind of scene my mother loved to create, putting me in a position where refusing her would make me look like the villain. But I wasn't that person anymore. As we approached, my mother spotted me, and her face lit up with relief. "Elena, thank God. There's been a terrible mistake. They're saying we're not on the guest list, but obviously that's wrong. You're sitting at the head table, so of course we should be here too." "There's no mistake, Mom," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You weren't invited because you're not welcome." My mother's smile froze. "Don't be ridiculous. We're your parents. Of course we're welcome at family events. You didn't consider my wedding a family event important enough to attend," I replied. "So no, you're not automatically welcome at events in my life anymore." People were definitely watching now. I could feel the weight of curious stares, hear the whispers starting. My father finally spoke up. "Elena, we're making a scene. Let's discuss this privately." "No," I said firmly. "You showed up uninvited to an event you have no right to attend. You're the ones making a scene. I'm simply asking you to leave." "How dare you?" my mother hissed, her mask finally slipping. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat us? We raised you, we paid for your education, and this is the thanks we get? You mean the education that cost half what you spent on Claire's?" I asked. "The raising that consisted of making me feel like I was never quite good enough? That's what you want thanks for?" My mother's face went pale, then red. "You ungrateful little—" "That's enough," Daniel cut in, his voice cold and authoritative. "You need to leave. Now. We have just as much right to be here as anyone," my mother insisted, her voice getting louder. "Our daughter is married to your son. We're family." Catherine had arrived beside us, and her presence seemed to make the air around us cooler. "Mrs. Foster, I believe Elena has made her wishes clear. You are not invited to this event, and you are not welcome. Security will now escort you out." Two security guards appeared at that moment, professional and firm. "If you leave quietly, this can remain relatively dignified," Catherine continued. "If you force us to have you removed, I assure you it will be significantly less pleasant and much more public." My mother looked around wildly, seeming to realize for the first time how many people were watching. The humiliation of being escorted out by security in front of some of the most influential people in the state finally penetrated her determination. "You'll regret this," she said to me, her voice shaking with rage. "Both of you will regret turning your backs on your family." "My family is right here," I said, gesturing to Daniel and Catherine. "You lost the right to call yourself my family when you chose not to show up for the most important day of my life." The security guards began to gently but firmly guide my parents toward the exit. My mother was crying now, mascara running down her face. My father looked smaller somehow, defeated in a way I'd never seen him. As they reached the doors, my mother turned back one last time. "Claire was right about you," she called out. "You've changed. This money and these people have poisoned you." you." "No," I called back, my voice carrying across the now silent ballroom. "They've freed me." The doors closed behind my parents, and for a moment, the silence in the room was absolute. Then, slowly, the conversations resumed, the volume increasing until it reached its previous level. I stood there, trembling slightly, unsure if I'd just done something brave or something terrible. Then I felt Catherine's hand on my shoulder. "Well handled," she said quietly. "I'm proud of you." "I think I need a minute," I whispered. "Take all the time you need," Catherine replied. "We'll be at the table when you're ready." Daniel stayed with me as I walked to a quiet corner near the terrace doors. My hands were shaking and I felt like I might cry or laugh or both. "Did I just humiliate my parents in front of half the city's elite?" I asked. "They humiliated themselves," Daniel said firmly. "You set a boundary and enforced it. That's not cruelty, Elena. That's self-respect. But everyone saw you stand up for yourself against people who were trying to manipulate and guilt you," he interrupted. "Trust me, you're not the villain in this story. You're the hero." We stood there for a few minutes, letting my heart rate return to normal. Through the glass doors, I could see the gala continuing. No one seemed particularly scandalized. If anything, several people smiled at me sympathetically as they passed. When we returned to the head table, Robert squeezed my hand. "That took courage," he said simply. "I'm glad you're part of our family." The rest of the evening was magical. Robert's speech accepting his award was moving, and when he thanked his family, he specifically mentioned me by name, praising the work I'd done with the foundation. The applause that followed made me feel valued in a way I'd never experienced with my birth family. During dinner, several people stopped by our table to introduce themselves to me specifically. They'd heard about the education initiative I'd developed, and they wanted to know more. By the end of the night, I had business cards from 3 different potential donors and an invitation to speak at a conference on childhood literacy. As we were leaving, Miranda, the event coordinator, approached me again. "Elena, I just wanted to tell you that I think you handled that situation with incredible grace," she said. "My own mother is. Difficult. Seeing you stand up for yourself like that was inspiring." "Thank you," I said, surprised by how much her words meant. In the limousine on the way home, I leaned against Daniel, exhausted but oddly exhilarated. "Do you think they'll try to contact me again?" I asked. "Probably," Daniel said, "but it won't be the same. You've made it clear that they can't manipulate you anymore. They've lost their power over you." Catherine, sitting across from us, smiled. "What happened tonight will spread through their social circle very quickly. By tomorrow, everyone they know will have heard that they were escorted out of the Philanthropic Excellence Gala. That kind of humiliation in their world is devastating." "Good," I said, and I meant it. The consequences of that night were swift and severe for my family. But for me, it was the beginning of understanding just how powerful I had become. The fallout from the gala was immediate and brutal for my family. The next morning, I woke to dozens of messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Former classmates, distant relatives, old neighbors. Everyone had heard about what happened, and opinions were sharply divided. Some people thought I was heartless for having my parents removed. Others applauded me for standing my ground. But what surprised me most was how many people reached out to share their own stories of family betrayal, of finally setting boundaries, of choosing themselves over toxic relationships. "Your story gave me the courage to finally cut off my sister," one former college friend wrote. "She's been treating me like garbage for years, and I kept thinking I had to accept it because we're family. Watching you stand up for yourself made me realize I deserve better too." Claire was the first family member to break the silence. 3 days after the gala, she sent an email that was equal parts furious and panicked. "Elena, do you have any idea what you've done? Mom and Dad are completely humiliated. Everyone they know has been calling to ask about what happened at the gala. Dad's law firm is buzzing with gossip. Mom can't show her face at her book club. And it's affecting me too. Do you get that? People are asking me about my family drama when I'm trying to network at gallery events. One potential buyer told me he couldn't work with someone from such a dysfunctional family. You need to fix this. Call Mom and Dad, apologize, and make a public statement saying there was a misunderstanding. Your mother-in-law needs to do the same. This is destroying our reputation. I know you're angry about the wedding thing, but this has gone way too far. You're hurting all of us because of your pride. That's not who you are, Elena. Please stop this before it gets any worse. Claire." I read the email twice, then forwarded it to Catherine without responding. Her reply came within minutes. "Notice how she's only concerned about how this affects her. Not a single word of apology or acknowledgement of what they did to you. Classic narcissist behavior. Do not engage." But engagement found me anyway. That afternoon, I received a call from my Aunt Linda, my mother's older sister. We'd always had a cordial relationship, though not a particularly close one. "Elena, honey, I need to talk to you about what happened at that gala," she began, her voice gentle. I braced myself for another lecture about family loyalty. "Your mother called me absolutely hysterical, saying you'd had her thrown out of some fancy party," Aunt Linda continued. "She made it sound like you just arbitrarily decided to humiliate her for no reason." "That's not what happened," I said quietly. "I know," Aunt Linda replied, surprising me. "I called Catherine Richardson. We served on a museum board together years ago. She told me the whole story, Elena, about your wedding, about your parents choosing Claire's exhibition, about all of it." "Oh," was all I could manage. "I'm calling to apologize," Aunt Linda said. "I had no idea your parents had missed your wedding. Your mother told everyone you'd had a small, intimate ceremony with just immediate family. She never mentioned they weren't there. The lie shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Of course they'd created a cover story. Of course they'd rewritten history to make themselves look better. They made a choice, I said, my voice stronger now, and they've been lying about it ever since. I can see that, Aunt Linda said, and I want you to know that I think you did the right thing at the gala. Your mother has always been difficult, but you didn't deserve to be treated the way they treated you. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. After we hung up, I felt lighter somehow. Aunt Linda's validation meant more than I'd expected. It confirmed that I wasn't crazy, wasn't overreacting, wasn't being unreasonable. The messages from my parents themselves came a week later, and they were exactly what I'd expected. My father sent an email, brief and formal as always. Elena, your mother is devastated by what happened at the gala. I think you need to seriously consider the damage you're doing to this family. We made one mistake by missing your wedding, and you're punishing us indefinitely. This is disproportionate and cruel. I've always known you to be a reasonable person. Please prove me right and reach out to your mother. Dad, one mistake. As if missing my wedding was an isolated incident rather than the culmination of 28 years of being treated as the least important member of the family. My mother's approach was different. She sent a long, rambling letter that arrived by mail, handwritten on her personal stationery. Dearest Elena, I don't understand what's happened to you. The daughter I raised would never be so cold and vindictive. I lie awake at night wondering where I went wrong, what I did to make you hate us so much. Was I a perfect mother? No. Did I make mistakes? Of course. But I loved you and your siblings equally, and I did my best with what I had. If you're angry about the wedding, I'm sorry. We thought you would understand. Claire's career is so precarious, and we felt we needed to support her. But that doesn't mean we don't love you. Having us thrown out of that gala in front of all those people was the single most humiliating experience of my life. Your father has been withdrawn and depressed. I've had to resign from 2 committees because I can't face the other members after what happened. Is this really what you want? To destroy your parents' lives because we made one choice you didn't agree with? I raised you to be better than this. Please, Elena, let's find a way to move past this. I'm your mother. I'll always be your mother. Don't throw that away. Mom, I read the letter in Catherine's study, where we'd started meeting every Tuesday for tea and conversation. She'd become not just a mother-in-law, but a genuine friend and mentor. She still doesn't get it, I said, setting the letter down. She's making herself the victim. Of course she is, Catherine replied. That's what people like your mother do. They reframe every conflict so they're always the injured party. It absolves them of responsibility. Part of me wants to write back, I admitted, to explain one more time exactly why I'm angry, to make her understand. You can't make someone understand something they're determined not to see, Catherine said gently. You've already explained. Multiple times. They've chosen not to hear you. That's not your failure, Elena. It's theirs. The real turning point came a month after the gala, at an event I'd almost forgotten about. The Richardson Foundation was hosting a charity art auction to benefit the literacy program I'd developed. We'd been planning it for months, and it had grown into a significant event with major donors and media coverage. Catherine had specifically asked me to give a speech about the program, explaining how it would help children in underserved communities develop reading skills. I'd been nervous about public speaking, but Catherine had coached me, helping me find confidence in my own expertise. The auction was held at a beautiful gallery space, with artwork from local and national artists on display. The room was filled with the kind of people who could write 5-figure checks without blinking. I was backstage preparing for my speech when Miranda found me again. Elena, there's a situation, she said, and my stomach immediately dropped. Your sister is here. She's registered as a bidder. My heart started racing. Did she pay the entry fee? Yes, she paid the $500 admission, so technically, she has a right to be here. But I wanted to let you know before you went on stage. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. Thank you for telling me. It's fine. She can stay. But it wasn't fine. When I walked onto the stage and looked out at the crowd, I immediately spotted Claire. She was sitting in the 3rd row, wearing an outfit that looked expensive but slightly wrong for the event, and she was glaring at me with undisguised hostility. I almost stumbled over my opening lines, but then I saw Catherine in the front row, giving me an encouraging nod. Daniel was beside her, his expression supportive, and suddenly, Claire's presence didn't matter. I gave my speech, talking about the importance of early literacy, about the children we would help, about the difference this program would make. My voice grew stronger as I spoke, more confident. This was my work, my passion, my achievement. Claire couldn't take that from me. The applause when I finished was thunderous. Several people stood, and I saw genuine emotion on many faces. This was real. This mattered. The auction began immediately after my speech. Art pieces were displayed, and bidding was fast and competitive. It was thrilling to watch the totals climb, knowing every dollar would go toward helping children learn to read. Then came lot number 17, a beautiful abstract painting in blues and silvers, created by a well-known local artist. The starting bid was $2,000. Claire's hand went up immediately. $2,000 from bidder 47, the auctioneer announced. Another paddle went up. $3,000 from bidder 12. Claire bid again. $4,000. The bidding continued, quickly escalating to $8,000. Only 2 bidders remained, Claire and someone I didn't recognize across the room. $9,000, Claire called out, her voice loud enough to carry without the microphone. tone. 10,000, the other bidder countered. Claire hesitated, and I could see the calculation on her face. This was well beyond what she could actually afford, but she raised her paddle anyway. 11,000. The other bidder dropped out. The auctioneer looked around the room. 11,000 going once, going twice, 15,000. A new voice called out. Everyone turned. Catherine had raised her paddle, her expression serene. Claire's face went white, then red. She knew she couldn't compete with Catherine Richardson's wealth. More than that, she knew what this was. A public demonstration of exactly how outmatched she was. 15,000 going once, the auctioneer continued. Going twice. Sold to bidder 3 for $15,000. The room erupted in applause for Catherine's generous bid. She smiled graciously, but I caught the satisfied glint in her eye as she glanced toward Claire. After the auction ended, I was surrounded by donors wanting to discuss the literacy program. It was exhilarating and exhausting. By the time the crowd thinned, Claire was waiting near the exit. "Elena," she called out as I approached. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do," I replied, trying to walk past her. She grabbed my arm, and immediately, security started moving toward us. I held up my hand to stop them, wanting to handle this myself. "Let go of me, Claire." She dropped my arm but didn't back away. "You're really going to do this? Keep pushing us away? Rubbing your fancy new life in our faces?" "I'm not rubbing anything in your face," I said. "I'm living my life. You chose to come here because I wanted to see what was so important that you'd abandon your family for it," Claire hissed. "And you know what? I get it now. You finally found people who were impressed by you. You finally got to be the special one instead of just the background sister who never quite measured up." The accuracy of her assessment, even twisted through her bitter lens, hit me hard. "You're right," I said quietly. "I was always the background sister. You made sure of that. All of you did. And now I found people who see me differently. People who value me. I'm sorry that bothers you, but I'm not sorry for choosing them over people who never chose me. We're your family," Claire said, but her voice had lost some of its venom. "That has to count for something." "It counted for everything," I replied, "until you all showed me that it counted for nothing to you. You missed my wedding, Claire, my wedding, and you haven't once actually apologized for it. You've been annoyed that I won't get over it, but you've never once said you were sorry." "I'm sorry," she said, but the words sounded hollow. "No, you're not," I said, finally understanding something fundamental. "You're sorry that your actions had consequences. You're sorry that I'm not the pushover sister anymore, but you're not actually sorry for what you did. And until you are, we have nothing more to say to each other." I walked away, leaving Claire standing alone in the gallery. Security quietly ensured she left the building without further incident. That night, lying in bed with Daniel, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. "It's really over, isn't it?" I said. "Whatever relationship I had with them, it's done." "How do you feel about that?" Daniel asked. "Sad," I admitted, but also relieved. I spent so many years trying to earn their love, trying to be good enough, and now I don't have to try anymore. I can just be. "You were always good enough," Daniel said, pulling me closer. They were just too blind to see it. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place 2 months later, when Aunt Linda called me again. "Elena, I thought you should know," she said. "Your parents are selling their house. They can't afford it anymore." "What happened?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "Your father's firm let him go," Aunt Linda explained. "Apparently, the gossip about the gala situation got back to his partners, and they didn't appreciate the negative attention. He's found another position, but it pays significantly less. And without his income, they can't maintain their lifestyle." "And Claire? Claire's trying to rebuild her reputation, but it's been hard. A lot of galleries don't want to work with her after all the drama. She's talking about moving to another city for a fresh start." I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. "Thank you for telling me," I said. "Elena, I want you to know something," Aunt Linda continued. "I'm proud of you. You stood up for yourself in a way that a lot of women in our family never learned how to do. Your mother has spent her whole life making herself small to please your father, and she expected you to do the same. You refused. That takes courage." After we hung up, I sat with the information for a while. My family was facing real consequences for their choices. Their reputation was damaged. Their finances were strained. Their comfortable life was falling apart, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, no urge to swoop in and fix everything. "They're struggling," I told Daniel that evening. "Do you want to help them?" he asked carefully. "No," I said, and realized I meant it. They made their choices. I'm not responsible for rescuing them from the consequences. "Good," Daniel said simply. "You've learned the most important lesson. You can love people and still protect yourself from them." 1 year after my wedding, I stood in the nursery of our townhouse, painting the walls a soft sage green. Daniel was assembling a crib, cursing softly at the incomprehensible instructions. "How is it possible that I run a multi-million-dollar company, but can't figure out how to put together furniture for a baby?" he muttered. I laughed, setting down my paintbrush. "Want me to try?" "Absolutely not. You're 6 months pregnant. You're supposed to be resting, not doing manual labor." I rolled my eyes but didn't argue. The pregnancy had been a surprise, but a welcome one. Catherine had cried when we told her, and Robert had immediately started talking about college funds and trust accounts. My own mother didn't know. Neither did my father, Claire, or Marcus. I hadn't spoken to any of them in over a year, and they had no idea a grandchild was was on the way. Sometimes I wondered if I should tell them, but then I would remember my wedding day. Remember standing alone where my family should have been, and the impulse would pass. The literacy program I'd developed had expanded to 5 cities. I'd been interviewed by 3 major magazines about the work. Educational conferences invited me to speak. My professional life was thriving in ways I'd never imagined. Catherine and I had lunch every Tuesday, a tradition we'd maintained since those early days after the gala. She'd become the mother I'd always wished for, offering guidance without judgment, support without conditions. "Have you thought about what you'll tell your daughter about your family?" she asked me one Tuesday, as we shared a table at our favorite restaurant. I'd been expecting this question. "I'll tell her the truth, age appropriately, that I had a family who didn't value me, and I had to make the hard choice to protect myself, and that sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. She'll never doubt that she's loved," Catherine said with certainty. "You and Daniel will make sure of that." "We will," I agreed, "and so will you and Robert." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. "Elena, it's Marcus. Claire gave me your new number. Look, I know things have been messed up, but Mom's not doing well. She's been depressed since Dad lost his job and they had to sell the house. I think she really regrets what happened with you. Would you consider reaching out just to talk?" I showed the message to Catherine. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "Nothing," I said, and I meant it. My mother had a year to reach out herself, to offer a genuine apology, to do the work of repairing our relationship. Instead, she sends Marcus to guilt-trip me because she's struggling. "You've come so far," Catherine observed. "A year ago, this message would have sent you into a spiral of guilt and doubt." "A year ago, I still believed I was responsible for their happiness," I replied. "Now I know better." I blocked Marcus's number and returned my phone to my purse. Later that week, I attended the opening of a new community literacy center, the flagship location for our program. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was attended by the mayor, several city council members, and dozens of families who would benefit from the center's services. As I gave my speech, talking about the importance of giving every child access to books and learning, I saw the faces of parents and children in the audience. They were excited, hopeful, grateful. This was what mattered. This was what I was building. After the ceremony, a young mother approached me with her daughter, who looked about 7 years old. "Ms. Richardson, I just wanted to thank you," the mother said, tears in her eyes. "My daughter struggled so much with reading. We couldn't afford tutoring, and the schools didn't have resources to help. This center is going to change her life." The little girl shyly handed me a drawing she'd made, a stick figure family holding hands in front of a building labeled Book Place. "Thank you," I said, kneeling down to her level. "This is beautiful, and I'm so proud of you for working on your reading. Keep it up, okay?" She nodded enthusiastically, and as they walked away, I felt a profound sense of purpose. This was what I was meant to do. This was who I was meant to be. That evening, Daniel and I hosted a dinner party at our home. Catherine and Robert came, along with Naomi, who was visiting from Seattle, and several of our close friends. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the clinking of glasses. "To Elena," Robert said, raising his glass, "who in 1 year has accomplished more than most people do in a lifetime. We're proud to call you our daughter." Everyone raised their glasses, and I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This was my family now. These people who showed up, who celebrated my successes, who supported me through challenges. Later, as I was clearing dessert plates with Naomi, she pulled me aside. "You seem happy," she observed. "Really happy. Not just okay, not just surviving. Actually, genuinely happy." "I am," I said, surprised by how true it was. "For the first time in my life, I'm not trying to earn anyone's approval. I'm not making myself smaller to make others comfortable. I'm just me, and that's enough." "It's more than enough," Naomi said, hugging me carefully around my pregnant belly. "You're amazing, Elena, and your daughter is going to be so lucky to have you as a mother." As the guests left and Daniel and I cleaned up the kitchen together, I reflected on how much had changed in 1 year. I'd lost the family I'd been born into, but I'd gained something infinitely more valuable, a sense of self-worth that didn't depend on anyone else's validation. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. Another message. "Elena, this is your mother. Marcus told me he tried to reach out to you. I don't understand why you won't respond. I know I made mistakes, but I'm your mother. Don't I deserve a chance to make things right? Please call me." "Mom." I read the message once, then deleted it without responding. Daniel noticed and raised an eyebrow. "Mom again?" he asked. "Yes." Through another number Marcus must have given her. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. She still doesn't get it. She thinks she deserves forgiveness just because she's my mother. She doesn't understand that forgiveness requires acknowledgement, accountability, and change, none of which she's offered. "Do you think she ever will?" Daniel asked. "Honestly, no. And that's okay. I've accepted that I can't change them. I can only change how I respond to them. By not responding at all," Daniel observed with a slight smile. "Exactly." 3 months later, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. We named her Sophie Catherine Richardson, after no one in particular, but with Catherine as her middle name to honor the woman who had shown me what real maternal love looked like. The hospital room was filled with flowers and balloons. Catherine and Robert were the first visitors, followed by Naomi, Professor Morrison, and several friends from the foundation. The room buzzed with joy and celebration. No one from my birth family knew Sophie existed. No one from my past life knew I'd become a mother, and I felt no guilt about that decision. She's perfect, Catherine said, holding Sophie with the practiced ease of an experienced grandmother. Absolutely perfect. She really is, I agreed, watching my daughter sleep peacefully in Catherine's arms. Robert was already on his phone, undoubtedly setting up trust funds and investment accounts, doing what he did best, taking care of his family. As I watched them, I realized something profound. Family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about choice and commitment. It was about showing up even when it was inconvenient. It was about celebrating successes and supporting through failures. It was about love that didn't come with conditions. My birth family had taught me what family shouldn't be. The Richardsons had shown me what it could be. 6 months after Sophie was born, I was featured in a major business magazine's 40 Under 40 list, recognizing young leaders making a difference in their communities. The article highlighted my work with the Literacy Foundation and included several photos, me at the community center, me speaking at a conference, and one of me with Daniel and Sophie at a foundation event. The article went viral in certain circles. I knew this because Aunt Linda called to congratulate me. "Your mother saw the article," she said carefully. "She didn't know about the baby." "I know," I replied, feeling nothing. "She's devastated that she wasn't told. She feels like she's missed everything. She made that choice," I said simply. "I invited her to my wedding, and she chose not to come. Everything that followed was a consequence of that choice. She wants to meet her granddaughter," Aunt Linda said. "She's asking if there's any way—" "No," I interrupted gently but firmly. "I'm not exposing my daughter to people who would make her feel the way they made me feel. Sophie will grow up knowing she's loved unconditionally, surrounded by people who value her. That's not negotiable." There was a long pause. "I understand," Aunt Linda finally said. "And for what it's worth, I think you're right." A year and a half after my wedding, I received one final message from my family. It came in a letter, handwritten by my mother, delivered to the Richardson Foundation office rather than my home. "Elena, I understand now that you've built a life without us. The magazine article made that very clear. You have a daughter we'll never know, a career we'll never be part of, a family we'll never join. I suppose we deserve that. I won't pretend to understand where everything went wrong. In my mind, we were a normal family with normal problems. But clearly you saw things differently, and your feelings are valid even if I don't fully comprehend them. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or to beg for a relationship. I'm writing to tell you that despite everything, I'm proud of what you've accomplished. The literacy program is genuinely impressive. Your daughter is beautiful. Your life seems full of purpose and joy. I'm sorry I couldn't be the mother you needed me to be. I'm sorry I didn't see you clearly when you were growing up. I'm sorry for missing your wedding and everything that followed. I don't expect you to respond to this letter. I don't expect anything from you anymore. I just wanted you to know that I see you now, even if it's too late. Mom." I read the letter 3 times, looking for manipulation or guilt tripping, but it seemed genuine in a way my mother's previous communications hadn't been. It was still self-centered, still didn't fully acknowledge the depth of the hurt she'd caused, but it was closer to real accountability than anything she'd offered before. I showed it to Catherine, who read it carefully. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think your mother has finally accepted that she lost you," Catherine said. "Whether she truly understands why is debatable, but she's at least stopped fighting the reality of the situation. Should I respond? Do you want to?" I thought about it for a long moment. "No," I finally said. "I think some doors once closed should stay closed. She had years to be the mother I needed. The fact that she sees me now doesn't change the past, and it doesn't obligate me to give her access to my future." "Then don't respond," Catherine said simply. "You've built a beautiful life. Protect it." And that's exactly what I did. Now, 2 years after my wedding, I stand in the living room of our townhouse, watching Sophie take her first steps. She toddles from Daniel to me, laughing with pure joy, and I scoop her up in my arms. "Good job, baby girl," I say, covering her face with kisses. "You did it." Catherine and Robert are here for Sunday dinner, a weekly tradition we've established. They cheer and applaud Sophie's achievement, and Robert is already on his phone, recording video to send to his business partner's family. This is my life now. This is my family, and it's better than anything I could have imagined when I stood in that bridal suite 2 years ago, wondering if I'd made a mistake by cutting off my birth family. I didn't make a mistake. I made a choice. The right choice. My birth family lost me not because I was vindictive or unforgiving, but because I finally understood my own worth. They lost me because I chose to surround myself with people who saw my value without me having to prove it constantly. Sometimes I still see updates about them through mutual connections. My father is working at a smaller firm. My mother volunteers at a local charity. Claire moved to Portland and is apparently doing better. Marcus got engaged. They're living their lives and I'm living mine. The difference is that I'm genuinely genuinely happy. I'm not performing happiness or hoping for approval. I'm not diminishing myself to make others comfortable. I'm not sacrificing my joy to maintain relationships that were never healthy to begin with. I look at Sophie, at her innocent face and bright eyes, and I make a silent promise. She will never have to earn my love. She will never wonder if she's good enough. She will always know that she matters, that her achievements deserve celebration, that her pain deserves acknowledgement. She will grow up understanding that family is about love and respect, not obligation and manipulation. And if anyone in her life, blood-related or not, makes her feel less than she is, she'll have the strength to walk away. Because that's what I'm teaching her by example, that self-respect is not selfish, that boundaries are not cruel, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept less than you deserve. My family chose Claire's art exhibition over my wedding. They made that choice freely, and they've lived with the consequences. They lost access to my life, to my success, to my daughter. That's not my failure. It's theirs. And I'm finally okay with that. Have you ever had to choose between staying in a toxic family situation or walking away to protect yourself? Have you felt the guilt of setting boundaries with people who think family means unconditional access? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else find the courage to choose themselves. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything, and it helps us continue sharing stories that matter. Thank you so much for watching until the end. Remember, you are worthy of love that doesn't require you to diminish yourself to receive it.